We've been reading about Epaphroditus taking a financial offering to Paul in Rome and staying with him to be his personal assistant. When he became sick and almost died, Paul sent him home, describing him as a man who was to be honored. The characteristics that made him an honorable man are worth us noting and emulating in our lives. So far, we focused on the fact that Epaphroditus was a brother and a co-worker. Look at the third description Paul gives of him in Philippians 2:25. Paul writes, "Meanwhile, I should send Epaphroditus back to you. He is a true brother, co-worker, and fellow soldier." Paul said this guy is a soldier. The word for soldier is the word for a campaigner. It paints the picture of a person who is toiling in a campaign alongside other campaigners. Life is so often about perspective. Many of us live with the expectation that we can live our lives on cruise control. We want to be comfortable and just cruise through each day with little or no trouble. Yet Paul saw his life as a spiritual campaign. It was a struggle, but a struggle with a purpose. When Paul talked about his life, he uses those kind of militaristic terms. He wrote at the end of his life in 2 Timothy 4:7, "I have fought a good fight." He said that his life was lived on purpose. In 1 Corinthians 9:26, he said, "Therefore I do not run like a man running aimlessly. I do not fight like a man beating the air." Paul was obsessed with God's calling on his life and his campaign for Christ. He described Epaphroditus as a partner or a co-campaigner in this endeavor. I wonder how we look at our lives. Do we realize that we are in a life and death struggle every day? Are we aware that we have an enemy in Satan and the world who would love to steal, kill, and destroy? Living for Christ is a victorious lifestyle in the end. Yet along the way, it is often described as a battle. In Ephesians chapter 6, verse number 12, Paul said, "For we are not fighting against flesh and blood, but against rulers, against authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in heavenly places." Like Epaphroditus, we need to join the fight. Every day we are to resist the devil. We are to fight the good fight. We're to be faithful soldiers. Too often, too many of us are AWOL, absent without leave. We're asleep on our post. God says we're to stand guard against the enemy. Today, Satan will buffet you. He will use whatever tool he can find that is effective to bring you down. Discouragement, jealousy, anger, lust, greed, resentment, fear, all of these are tools of Satan in his daily war on you. Yet God has made a promise. James wrote, "So humble yourselves before God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you." So as you go throughout this day, stay humble. That is, realize all day today that you cannot fight this battle alone. You are totally dependent upon him to make it. Yet God has promised when you choose to resist, when you choose not to give in to those feelings, Satan has to flee. He has to flee because Scripture says in 1 John 4:4, "But you belong to God, my dear children. You've already won a victory over these people, because the Spirit who lives in you is greater than the spirit that lives in the world." Soldiers, stand your post along with Paul today. Stand with Epaphroditus and all other believers who stand in the strength of God's might and power. The thought for today is this: through Christ, I have overcome the world. And as we finish today, here's a prayer to pray. Dear God, help me to stand. Help me to fight. Help me to resist the fiery darts of the enemy and to be a faithful soldier in the battle for my life and the cause of Christ. May God bless you as you soldier on today.